The last few decades have seen a nuanced and dynamic change unfold in the relationship between consumers and the luxury industry. For the next session, which is on the evolving luxury landscape, sponsored by American Express, I would like to invite on stage the session moderator, Mr. Vinod Nair, who's the consulting editor, Lifestyle and Luxury Events, India Today Group.
May I request the panelists, starting with Pushpa Bhakta, Senior Executive Director of DLF Retail, Mark Henderson, representing Walpole, the Association of British Luxury Goods, and Armando Branchini, representing the Italian luxury brands through Alta Gamma. All right, we are going to start the session of the changing luxury landscape with opening remarks by all my panelists, starting with Pushpa, and then we'll start the conversation.
Good afternoon, everyone. May I request you all to be seated, please? Thank you. Well, you know, the first thing that I'd like to say about, the entire luxury piece is I want to step back and talk about the Indian economy. Because we started luxury way back in 2008, and DLF Emporio was the first one. We are the OG in the luxury business. So when we started it, at that time, of course, we had the financial crisis, and we went right ahead. In spite of the financial crisis, Emporio was a phenomenal success. As they always say, pandemic gives, and any kind of global crisis, actually luxury does extremely well during such crisis. And that was proven to us then, way back in 2008, and now during the pandemic currently. So the Indian economy today is at a very, very interesting period. You know, we are growing at 6.5%, and it is tutored to be one of the fastest growing economies of the world, as you know. Be it Fitch or be it IMF, all of them are talking about the Indian economy's growth. The second thing is our inflation is at 5%. So both these things really talk about one thing, that we have more disposable income. Indians today are coming out of their savings mindset to a mindset of living a good life and wanting to enjoy life as it stands today. Luxury grows very well in this phenomenon. The other aspect to really talk about is that the Indian market cap today, in the past 3 years, has increased over 80%. And that's phenomenal, which means that there is liquidity in the market. You know that we have just about surpassed the Hong Kong stock exchange the past week. So it just shows there's so much more liquidity in the market. And the liquidity has to get some spot to park. One big spot to park is great discretionary purchases, which is where luxury stands in a big way. The other aspect is, of course, you know that the property prices, we are in DLF, we'll always talk about properties. The property prices just shot up over 50 to 100%, some of them over 100% if you're in a DLF space, in the past 3 years. So what does it all say? I mean, these are all macro pictures, but what does the data tell us? It tells us that the Indian consumer is ready today to A, welcome new brands, B, explore and live a kind of a good life. The Indian consumers, according to Goldman Sachs, the affluent class of the Indian consumers is just going to go up by 2030 to over 100 million. 100 million is larger than most of the European countries put together. Now that is a phenomenal number to go after for the luxury brands. So today, when we talk about the luxury market in India, we were just pre-pandemic over $5 billion. And today, we grew in 22 to around $7 billion. And Bain & Company's just come up with a report which says that this market's going to go up by 3.5 to 4 folds, which means it will become a $40 billion to $30 billion. Now, that is serious market for luxury, and I'm sure the luxury brands are making note of this and wanting to enter India. As I say to our welcoming our panelists here, that we all need to take the plane now, or we miss the bus ride or the plane ride. So that's what I would like to start with.
So next is, thank you, Pushpa. Mark he donned several hats. One, like I said, he represents the Walpole, which is Association of British Luxury Brands. And he is also the chairman of Gibbs and Hawkes. Those who don't know about Gibbs and Hawkes or Savile Row, when I mentioned James Bond, James Bond only wore Savile Row suits. And Armando's people came and snatched him away for some time. I think he started wearing Brioni or Tom Ford for some time. But I think you're trying to haul him back.
Good afternoon. I think it's afternoon now, isn't it? So good afternoon. I've had the pleasure of spending 40 years working with British brands. And one of my very first jobs was working with a fashion designer called Mary Quant. And I spent a great deal of time in Japan and other places, but Japan in particular. And it was such a joyful time to be building a big business in Japan. And one of the things that I certainly learnt was that if you really concentrate on doing a few things really, really well, you can build a very, very big business. But Mary Quant now is, sadly, she's died, but it was a magnificent exhibition of her work at the Victoria and Albert Museum in London a couple of years ago. And 25 years ago, I went to Alfred Dunhill, to Gibbs and Hawkes. I'm going to skip Dunhill. I went to Gibbs and Hawkes 25 years ago, and we had the most wonderful address, which is number 1 Savile Row, which is a famous tailoring address. And the first thing that we did was really paid attention to what is the history of this business. And the history of Savile Row is about handmade tailoring. And so one of the very first things we did was set up an apprenticeship scheme. And we've now trained well over 104 fully qualified apprentices now. And that means that legacy is going to continue. And people, I guess at the beginning of the period, there was a sort of question about, is anybody seriously going to want a handmade suit? Why don't they just go and buy something off the peg, which is costing £5,000 or whatever it was? And the answer is, of course, they still want handmade product. And so that was the sort of core of our business, and I'm happy to say that core is still extremely strong. We have teams going over to the US, into the Middle East, and other locations, but happily also a lot of people coming to London. One of our first decisions was that we were going to concentrate on China, not India, not America, but China. And we built a very successful, very big business in China. There was one catch, which was that our Chinese partners actually bought our business. And that wasn't altogether a smooth ride. And so to some extent, I'm now back almost at the beginning. But the core business remains incredibly strong because it delivers what it said it would deliver, which is bespoke suits on Savile Row. I guess one other remark I would make is that it's very encouraging to come here and see James Bond over there, and also to see gin over there, the vital ingredient for a dry martini. And so Britain stands for lots of things. It stands for traditional luxury, but it also stands for really very interesting new luxury and new brands. And there's a tremendous number of new businesses happening in London, in England at the moment. And I guess my final remark would be to say, I've been coming to India for 10 years, and 20 years. when I first met Vinod, I think it was in Delhi, wasn't it? And it was kind of at the beginning of this, well, you know, India is a huge market. When are you guys coming in? And it feels like, in a way, a lot has changed, but it still hasn't really crystallized. And maybe this is the moment that things are really going to start, just taking up your comments, really, maybe this is the moment that things are really going to start. And I know Armando's got something to say about that.
Armando's, like I said, represent Alta Gamma, which is the association of all the Italian luxury brands. For the same reason, if you want direct access to any of the Italian designers, Dolce & Gabbana or Giorgio Armani, I suggest that you steal his mobile phone. He has them on your speed dial.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Vinod, for your kind presentation. The Indian luxury market for me is a sort of a fiancé. I have been courting this country for 25 years now, and this fiancé has always promised and promised. And I hope that quite soon she will deliver. Why I say it so? Because India, it's a wonderful country, wonderful culture, wonderful attention and love for beauty, for craftsmanship, for beautiful things. But in the same time, it's a country, and also the luxury market is full of discrepancies, full of contradictions. So definitely we are in a phase where hopefully some things are positively changing, particularly in the consumption side and the entrepreneurial side. I forecast that this decade will see, from the year 2021 to 2030, a growth of luxury consumption in India of 4 times in real terms. So it's not bad at all. A little worse as a forecast compared to what press people write sometimes, but I consider that is very positive. And in the same time, I see that the institutional framework is still very negative. For example, being focused on luxury and luxury people, in a country where millionaires and billionaires are absolutely welcome, when a customer buys something at 50,000 rupees on, he has to give the PAN card, so he has to give the tax number, his tax code, to punish him because he is going to buy some luxury. In the same time, another discrepancy is the fact that the prices of imported luxury goods in India are much higher than in all other countries of the world. All other countries. Why? Because the custom duties are from 30 to 50%. And so if you buy a Rolex or a Gucci bag, you have to pay 30 to 50. Just to give an idea, the regular custom duty in Europe is 12%. In the US, it's 17%, so much higher. A final point, the discrepancy that when I heard it, I was very surprised, is that a foreigner can't buy an apartment or a house in this country. And so I checked out in what other country of the world there is such a regulation. It is North Korea. So just North Korea and India don't allow to foreign people to buy a house. So not that I was willing to buy a house in Goa, but anyway, I find it as an unbelievable limitation of my freedom of purchasing. Thank you.
But Armando,
So,
if you want to buy a
Armando-
house, you can buy it in my name and you can come and stay. Push, I think.
But I have to pay cash, black market, and keep your name as an owner.
Armando,
I
I
think
think, few things that has changed is, in fact, we were there with the LV team last night. The good news is the indexation of pricing has changed dramatically, especially COVID and post-COVID in India. So today, if I look at earlier what was happening, Armando, was that many of the brands had picked up franchises. They had given franchises because you're right, most people did not believe in the India story. But now what happened is there were many brands who have come in on their own, or they have silent partners or as joint venture partners. With that, they are controlling the pricing. So today, if you look at a Gucci store or an LV store, stores where real commerce does take place, the price between the home country and here, the difference is only 15%. And may I say that many of our customers who used to go to Dubai to shop or to Singapore to shop find it much more expensive in those markets. So Indians used to shop in Dubai, in London, or in Singapore. Those were the three top countries. Now that money has come right back. So there is a trend that was the case earlier. Dare say it's changing for the positive.
No, I agree with that, with you on that. But the point is that the companies that you mentioned, LV or Gucci, they have to make an average of what they have as a contribution on price, on the prices of what they sell in Europe or in Dubai and Singapore, and the non-margins they have in India. So definitely is the reason why so far Gucci has opened 5 stores in India, whereas in China there are 90. And Louis Vuitton has opened so far 4 stores in India, whereas in China they are 82, sorry. So the point is why the Indian government and market rules have to put European companies in a position of being here mostly to underline and emphasize that they still exist in the market
Armando,
without getting profit from it.
Armando, the number of stores that is you're mentioning in China, for instance, one of the reasons why it didn't happen is that when these brands entered the Chinese market, especially when it comes to fashion goods, the Chinese women and they completely moved away from their traditional costumes to the Western attire. So the business was successful, the demand started growing, and then one store after the other came. Whereas in India, they still are Indians. They mix Western with Indian, the thing. So the success, I don't, when it comes to accessories, for instance, and it's a fairly big success in India. That reminds me, I want to ask Mark. Mark, when he was the chairman of Gibbs and Hawkes, had number of stores, 150 in China, which probably is more than what we have McDonald's in India. So would you like to touch upon that part, Mark, the number?
Yeah, I mean, the reason we focused on China was because of the fact it had very good infrastructure, and it had a huge number of high net worth individuals. And actually, that still is the case. If you take China, there's 22 million individuals who are listed as high net worths. If you take India, it's 800,000. So it's still a minuscule market by comparison. Perhaps our mistake was that we opened too many malls, too many shops too quickly, but also selling out might have been a mistake. But the point is the same one really that Armando is making. This is about when the market is the right size, when the infrastructure is there. But on the other hand, I was reading the day before yesterday which country has the growth potential for the highest increase in the world for the number of high net worth individual. It's India. So maybe we have to wait another couple of years, maybe it's 10 years, who knows how long it's going to be. But when you think that we were talking yesterday about the first luxury mall in China was in 1992. So actually it's not that long ago. And so I'm sure that things will develop in due course in India. And of course you have your own brilliant luxury brands, which maybe China doesn't have. So that's another, maybe a barrier, but maybe an opportunity.
One last question, which is a combination of consumer as well as brands. And I'll leave that with you as my last question for the session. And all three of you can quickly touch upon that. Mohan Murjani, who brought Gucci to India years ago, once told me that often the person who comes wearing a very casual jeans and t-shirt, this I'm talking about the attitude of the stores toward customers. They used to look down upon them, saying that, who is this guy walking in with sneaker and jeans, and he's not a potential customer. But Mohan said, more often than not, he's the one who's carrying an MX black card in his pocket. So has that attitude changed in terms of from the retail part towards the consumers?
Absolutely. Interestingly, the story that we were narrating over dinner is this, that you can't judge a person, in India especially, through the clothes they wear, because there are very, very high net worth individuals, for example, in the South or in the Northeast. The 800,000 that you're talking about are stated wealth. But the unstated wealth is far, far more. And that is the propeller for luxury in the country. And that's something that we need to see. The other thing that I'd like to also say is that, in India, you're right that we have adopted to luxury brands, but we are very proud of our own craftsmanship. So when Dior did the show with the craftsmanship based out of India, their sales has shot up by around 80%. So and today Bulgari is coming up with the Mangal Sutra. Today, Louis Vuitton launched its wedding edition for shoes, especially for India. The reason why they are doing it is because the Indian market is really one which has depth and one which has pride. The Indian consumer is very proud of their own culture, but they want to embrace the luxury space within that culture, and I think that is what good brands are realizing, and they're collaborating a lot more. It really gladdens our heart when I see Mr. Pino coming in and not just talking to landlords, he's talking to the craftsmen. When, the LV team comes in, they're talking to the craftsmen, which means that the collaboration with the Indian designers and craftsmen, they understand the potential, and we think that India is in the right space where there are quite a few luxury brands that are going to go global. We're going to take some luxury brands. Sabyasachi has started it, and Rahul Mishra and Gaurav Gupta, you will meet them in the evening. They have started some fabulous brands which are going outwards too. So I think we are at that space where there is collaboration with the world, and our consumption is such that the brands will find it very interesting to come to India, collaborate with us, and grow with us. It's an economy which has got the largest unicorns in the country. There's a startup energy here which is unmatched in almost like China. I think as an overall bouquet of how India is today, the moment for luxury has come to India would be my statement.
Absolutely. Siddhi, do you have permission to ask one more question? A quick one from Armando and Mark. Armando, Yves Carcel, who's been a friend for many years with me, and he loved India as the chairman of Louis Vuitton and in person and as a person. Eve used to always say that if you're looking for quick profits, a quick turnaround, go do some other business, start selling burger or something. Many luxury brands which entered India was in a hurry to expand, and then it takes time from a market which is so traditional. Opened five stores in a series, and they started retracting back to one or two. Has that changed when you look at India as a market?
Unfortunately, Yves Carcel passed away so young. But I totally agree on his point of view and in general on his vision. He did a lot for creating the luxury consumption, the contemporary luxury system, production, distribution, consumption as it is today. I believe that luxury needs absolutely patience and professionality. And going to the presence of international luxury brands in this market, I am more optimistic now than I was 5 years ago, for example, before COVID. And the news that was given yesterday that here at the Emporio you are going to create another pavilion, another building, is a very good news. I am sure that it can be a factor spurring a new phase of European luxury brands entrance in this market. But those brands need not just to find the space for a store or for many stores, they need to have local partners that have high professionality, big shoulders, and a lot of patience. So the fact that a big company such as Reliance brand entered very strongly years ago in that area has been, I would say, the second step up for the presence of luxury brands in India. And as I consider that the first step was when in the year 2005, after discussion of months of discussion with at the time Minister of Commerce and Industry, Kamal Nath, that I called today to say hello, and I found out at the Bulgari Hotel in Milan the solution of the 49-51% scheme. That was a first step up, and in particular, that convinced the Singh family to create Emporio. Without that regulation, it would be impossible for the Singh family to invest in this sector. So nowadays, I believe that the presence of Reliance brand, the opportunity and the willingness of DLF also to be partner of luxury brands in this country are going to give a further burst.
Mark, any quick last words from you?
Well, I guess, I suppose the one thing is, just looking back, is you might ask, is luxury a serious business? And the answer is yes. I mean, it's consistently grown ahead of world GDP. One of the constantly growing sectors is the luxury sector. And actually, you could probably go back to the Medicis in the sort of 15th century, but it's been constant. And the thing that I really like about the moment now is that it's not just driven by money and by wanting to show off, but also this interest in craftsmanship, so that everybody is happy. Not only the landlords are happy, the brand owners are happy, but the people that are making the products are appreciated and are making beautiful products. So it's a great business, the luxury business, and I believe that the future here is fantastic.
Thank you so much for that, ending with that positive note, Mark. And I thank the panelists, Pushpa, Mark, and Armando. Thank you so much.